I took off my Apple Watch for Lent, got my old watch fixed up, and I've been wearing that one. The fancy Apple Watch has been sitting on my dresser, uncharged and just dead to the world since Ash Wednesday. Finally, last week I got a message on my phone that said, "We think that there's been a change in the number of steps you take each day." Would have been long gone by then. Well, I thought this would be a good season to pray about my addictions. And I would say it's going okay. I don't miss the watch, but now I'm finding the phone harder to put down at night when it's bedtime. Mostly it's Candy Crush. And I'm drinking more coffee during the day, so the addictions are kind of leveling themselves out. Maybe you can relate. Well, just so, some are already hooked on another technology. I'm guessing you may have heard or read lately about the potential use and abuse of artificial intelligence and chatbots. All you have to do is ask, and they can automatically generate any kind of text that you prefer on any subject that you can think of. This is only in its infancy, but this technology seems to be coming quickly upon us. One of the countless ethical questions arising from this is that in a world of computer copy and paste, it's easy to pass off AI work as one's own. I am not interested in doing this in sermons or anywhere else. I've just found it kind of interesting to experiment and play around with. So this past week, as I was thinking about Lazarus, I asked a chatbot to tell me why the raising of Lazarus by Jesus was so significant. And it gave me a list of 3 answers, each of them thoughtful and well-written and theologically cogent. And no, I'm afraid I can't read them to you, because at this point I believe I have a moral obligation not to do that. And if you'd like to know more about that, I'd be happy to explain it to you sometime. But I will say that I was shocked at how quickly the bot got its ideas. Bit of a pet peeve, though, and I guess this is a giveaway. It didn't ask me why I had asked the question about Lazarus in the first place. And that, as we know from just living our lives, is a crucial first step in knowing how to be helpful. It didn't take an interest, as it were. It just offered to tell me how to think. And so upon further reflection, I realized that what each of its responses lacked was the depth and the heart that can only come from actual, raw, humbling experience. I wasn't being responded to as a person, just as a program possibility. The words were right, but the tone was way off. It only said what the algorithm said that it should say, within the limits it had been trained to observe. As we've learned, sometimes there can be an almost unbridgeable gulf between being factually right and being loving. Sometimes the only way to be loving with someone is to be factually right with them, but there can be a difference between being cheery and helpful and really listening and responding from the gut. There can be a huge difference between accuracy and compassion. And that's why there is such intense power in those 2 little words that we all learned as children. What's the shortest verse in the Bible? Jesus wept. He wept. He cried real tears because his friend had died. It's that simple. It's when I'm confronted with this side of God that all my defenses just drop. One of the observations we hear about God is that God is distant, God is removed, God is cold, God is a sort of benign watchmaker who set up everything and then went to lunch for the rest of eternity. But for me, Jesus crying at the grave of his friend, that just exposes the thinness of that argument. This isn't some mechanical theatrics. This isn't responding to a prompt. It's not an acting exercise. It's not even the logical outcome of having run the algorithm. Jesus has a spontaneous human moment that shows us the compassionate heart of God. He has lost his loving companion, and it hurts him. If God doesn't care, then Jesus doesn't cry. If Jesus cries, then to me, by definition, God is involved. As I said, I've been thinking about my addiction to technology all of this Lent, and I've seen how we are so insulated from the reality of life sometimes. Countless interests are constantly pinging us and competing for our attention. It's easy to feel exhausted and pulled in a million different directions, emotionally and psychologically used up, divided from our friends, our colleagues, our families, our neighbors, and from real situations and people. We can lose touch with what actually is, and with who and what it is that really needs our attention. I've learned this year that technology can put a kind of tired glaze between us and the world that we inhabit. So it's worth breaking with that every once in a while, stepping out and getting free from it. The compassion of Christ is not just a story from long ago and far away, it's actually a pointer. It tells us to get out of the pods that we find ourselves in. Get out of the pod. Self-constructed, media ensconced, technologically enhanced, Bluetooth connected, room for one, pod. Just open the door. The compassion of Christ and the tears of Christ are a clear message to look past the screen, yes, but also to be involved, to live a life of care, to be fully awake and alive, to show compassion when we encounter the pain of the world, and respond out of our genuine selves, from our deepest heart, from our hardest ability to listen. Because after all, even on our best days, all of us are going through something. So the chance to be like Jesus can't be more than a few feet from where you're sitting right now. Amen.